we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. We're having lunch with Stone Hansen. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here. Of course, along with Stone Hansen. Go ahead and check out all the stuff that we do, starting with Stone Hansen. Of course, follow him at report_court. Also on Blue Sky. Also, go ahead with the Upside Swings podcast itself. Go ahead and check him out. His great work with the NBA draft so far. And then also with us, go ahead and like and subscribe to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest Lakers Fast Break podcast. Raphael, great to have you here. What's for lunch? Good conversation on the upcoming NBA playoffs. And the man is here indeed. It is, of course, Stone Hansen. Stone, great to have you back, my friend. As you know, the Lakers are resting up, gearing for a 3-6 matchup in the Western Conference NBA playoffs against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Your initial thoughts on how the Lakers finished up and what's ahead for the Lakers in the first round?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. I think the as far as how the Lakers finished, I think they finished great because they finished as a 3 seed, and by the end of those final couple of games, a 2 seed was already out of reach anyways. So getting that 3 seed is all we could have asked for at that point, and they achieved that. Um, as far as the matchup, I'm fairly happy with this matchup. I'd rather have this matchup than somebody like I honestly like I'd be more afraid of the Clippers than I am the Timberwolves. I'd be more afraid of the Warriors than I am the Timberwolves. So this worked out well, I think, for us because I think the big reason I feel, and this is the NBA playoffs, anything can happen. I'm not saying 100% with 100% certainty that the Lakers will win, although I do favor them. But I think the fact that we are a very strong team, our two biggest creators are very strong with LeBron and Luca. I think that poses some challenges for the Timberwolves. They have great defenders with Nikhil Alexander Walker, Jaden McDaniels, but these guys are just going to be overpowered by guys like Luca and LeBron in terms of their strength. And I think that poses a real issue for Gobert, someone is not playing. So that's sort of the issue I see for the Wolves, and I think why we have a big advantage headed into this playoff round.
It's just so funny though that Luka Doncic's name is still all over the place, including still in Dallas earlier today. I don't know if you saw the ESPN article that I guess Nico Harrison was having another conversation, this time with select media reporters in and around the Dallas area, and reiterated his stance, and that says, and saying that defense wins championships, which is the reason why he facilitated that trade. Although still,
And no microphones allowed, right?
yes, no microphones were allowed
Yeah.
during that process. That was hilarious. And on top of that, the reporting by ESPN that I guess in the Dallas area, Luka Doncic's jersey sales still outsell all the other Dallas Mavericks combined. I think was as quoted, if I'm paraphrasing, but I believe that was correct according to the ESPN article, which is still hilarious indeed. But I want to ask you this, my friend, when it comes right down to it. I think the Lakers, uh, again, they have to make sure that they utilize their small ball properly. Because there is going to be a heavy dose of it here in the playoffs. Jamison and Koloko were not retained on the playoff roster, and Alex Len has been a miserable failure for the Lakers, and probably would be only used as a break glass in case of emergency type situation. So the Lakers don't have really an abundance of big men as far as backup on the roster, at least any have been of any quality. Let's just put it that way. Your thoughts on how they're going to have to utilize effectively the small ball operation? Again, when it comes down to it in the playoffs, it is all about matchups. And Gobert, in that first round, he has been taken out of the playoffs on several occasions now during the course of his career because of the fact that he's just not able to guard out in the perimeter. And it looks like the Lakers, they're going to have to go ahead, if they're successful, they're going to have to go ahead and do that again.
Yeah, I think that's the best option and what I would expect JJ to do as well, headed into this series where you play five out, you um, draw Gobert out. I'm sure the Wolves will start this series with Gobert out there just to see how long they can get away with it. But after so long, I think they'll probably realize that they're going to have to bench him rather quickly, and then you're dealing out with a five out situation. I would personally start LeBron at the center in this series. I think that is the best option for the Lakers because you would have to imagine there's probably going to be a lot of Randall, a lot of Naz Reid at the five, and I think LeBron's just quicker than those guys can function on the perimeter with their feet.
Mhm.
And so I would try and exploit that mismatch by putting LeBron at the five, try and get switches so that's who they're mainly guarding. And to be honest, that might be who the Wolves put on LeBron, just because they don't really have anybody else that fits that level of physicality with them. Like I would expect a lot of Randall and LeBron this series, maybe a fair amount of Naz Reid, just because those are the guys that are really the strongest of that group, that can really withstand some of the strength that he'll put upon that team. But they're going to have an issue with the foot speed, so they're kind of in a catch 22 with that situation. And then that's not to mention Luca, right? Where you whoever isn't guarding LeBron is probably on Luca, or they'll put Anthony Edwards on Luca. I imagine Luca sees a fair amount of different guys with McDaniels, Alexander Walker, Edwards, and they'll throw different coverages at him, but all of them come with their own set of issues and drawbacks in regards to having to defend Luca. So I think exploiting mismatches and really relying on your stars in this series is going to be the big way to do it. Uh, and relying on your stars doesn't have to mean those guys putting up 35 each night. I think it can mean as long as those guys are consistently initiating everything on the offensive end. They don't have to finish it, but they have to initiate it. And I think that's going to be what the Lakers are going to really have to heavily rely on this series to give themselves the best opportunity to win it.
Once again, it is Stone Hansen. Please go ahead and check him out today on Twitter at report_court or the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast. I want to ask you this. Brian Green says Randall won't have a problem with LeBron's foot speed. I kind of disagree with that. Randall is a very one-dimensional player. Although if he does, dramatically, hit his 3 points, if he reverts back to 3 seasons ago and that one dramatic All-Star year that he had with the Knicks, then okay, that's something obviously the Lakers cannot plan for, and will just have to take their chances. But I don't see Randall being that effective against the Lakers, especially the fact that he's very prone to getting offensive fouls himself. And again, if you have LeBron with a week off that's rested, I have a feeling that LeBron should take advantage of any matchup, whether it's Randall or whoever they throw against him in the front line. But I want to ask you this: when it comes to Anthony Edwards, that is a different thing altogether, and it swings in favor of the Timberwolves depending on who they match up against him. As far as I do, it's all about switching. What happens? This league is just infatuated with switching on the defense and hunting out matchups and all that. So when it comes down to it with Edwards, and he tries to hunt out a Reeves or someone else out there that they feel they can pick on, your thoughts on how the Lakers should be able to handle it, or can they handle it against Anthony Edwards?
Yeah, you're definitely going to see the Wolves try and switch onto Luca and Reeves as much as possible. They're going to try and attack these guys every time down the court, anytime that they're on the floor. And it is JJ and the Lakers' job to figure out how to not stop it, because you're not going to fully stop that, but how to mitigate that. I think one way is doubles. I think you're going to have to force a lot of doubles. And when you don't have a cat on this roster, it becomes a little bit easier to do that. I've talked about this in the past too. A cameo from Joe there. Talked about it in the past that when you're doubling, you have to double right, and I think uh, JJ understands this much more than our previous coach. Where if you are doubling somebody, the help defender has to come from somebody that can't take advantage of that, and it has to be the help defender has to be someone that can recover back to their man, and whether that's through proximity or through the help's athletic abilities. I think that's really what's going to underscore how effective a double team is, and that's the sort of defense I would employ if I were JJ, and what I think he will do, because like I said, otherwise it's just going to be them trying to attack Luca and Reeves every time down the court, and that puts a lot of also strain on them throughout the entirety of a playoff series, right? If they're having to work extra hard physically every time down the court just to not get exploited, they're going to run out of gas a lot faster. So I think a double team is a way to preserve guys, but also to counteract how you're going to get around those guys being exploited every single time.
Now, one of the names that was mentioned as soon as the series was finalized was Dante DiVincenzo about possibly making a difference because last season in the playoffs, you and I both know, due to circumstances as far as injury and necessity, he absolutely killed it. He stepped up to the plate. He got the opportunity. He got the shots. He got the touches, and he took about as good advantage of it as possible. He's probably not going to get the same amount of touches or responsibility, but there is always that possibility that the fact that he can be that type of player that steps up in the playoffs. How concerned are you about what we see with Dante DiVincenzo? Again, he's had an up and down season. Injuries have kind of hurt him, but as of late, he's started to come around, and he's close to 40% shooting as he finishes out the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly concerned about him because he's not overly consistent, but I think there's a decent chance we see a good amount of him this series just because uh, Mike Conley's damn near 40 years old, so
Mhm.
he's what is he, 36 or 37 now? So um, that's a lot of strain to put on somebody of that age and the miles that Mike Conley has when you're that age and not named LeBron. Generally speaking, you're going to run out of gas pretty quickly throughout the entirety of a playoff series. I'd imagine we see a lot more elevated DiVincenzo minutes because of that, and I think that we have to factor him into the game plan, or not we, but JJ and his staff. And I think that the best option for that to me would be Gabe. This is where Gabe is very much a one positional defender in my opinion, but he does it really well. And I think DiVincenzo's small enough. He not to say he's small, but he's sort of right about the limit where Gabe can effectively guard somebody, the size limit. And I think that putting Gabe on DiVincenzo is your best option. Uh, Chris Finch is a really smart offensive coach, so he's going to get a lot of drawn up plays for not necessarily DiVincenzo, but where DiVincenzo finds himself in open areas. And I think making sure Gabe sticks with him because Gabe is a really good off ball tracker would be your best bet in mitigating DiVincenzo's impact.
I'm here again with Stone Hansen. You got to go ahead and check him out today on the Upside Swings NBA Draft podcast. I don't know if Joe is still getting things taken. There he is. You ready to come on now, sir? Did you talk to makeup? Get everything taken care of? All
No, I
right.
was more eating breakfast late.
Oh, no worries. Well, it's lunch. Welcome to Lunch with Stone Hansen. It is, of course, Joe Soro, Simblades, Simblades with a Y.com, his game Corrupt, CUREUPT on Steam, and, of course, the Joe Soro Experiment. Joe, you have some thoughts with Stone Hansen?
I missed the first. Where are we at right now? 10 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys discussed, but
I was just talking about general matchups, but Stone is generally, paraphrasing Stone, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're generally pleased that the Lakers have the Timberwolves as a matchup.
so that was going to be my question. I've been adamant about travel. Travel takes a lot of energy out of a team, especially after an 82 game season. And my preference was to play the Warriors because of that, and the fact that the Warriors play well, but they tend to come up lame. At least they have the last few years. And I'm not scared of Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler might have finally run out here at this year. I think his juice has run out. And the fact that they signed him to an extension was a desperate move from my part, because I don't think they're going to get the same Jimmy. They're not going to get the same Jimmy Butler from the last, I don't know, 5 years, let's say. And
they're not going to get playoff Jimmy, is what you're asking.
No, not from what I've seen. And I wanted to limit the stress of the little things off the court, because you've heard me say all year, these guys are not mentally tough to handle things. And it's not just basketball players or football players. It's society. Every generation we make things easier and easier and easier. And what that does is it conditions us to then complain about things that are kind of minuscule. Like, oh my God, you're paying me $40 million, but you want me to fly and play back-to-back games? When you have that mentality set, and not only that, you have a fan base and a media that perpetuate it. And now you're like, oh yeah, so I feel the same way. Well, those are the guys, unfortunately, if you guys are listening, you people that talk like that, you're the reason why we're soft, because you're soft. And I'm just trying to make light of that and understanding the mentality that's there and try to cater to it, because I have no choice at this point. I wish I could just say, get your asses in gear here and play through that, but that's not a realistic thing. So by playing Minnesota, I'm interested in hearing why you think that might be a better draw than maybe a Golden State or a Memphis.
Yeah. Well, Memphis, I would prefer Memphis over anybody, to be honest. But I once they were the 8th seed, I just didn't really see it as plausible. But to make that clear, I would rather face them. With the Warriors, I think it comes with the caveat of Butler's health too. If Butler and what happened at the end of that game, and he's not fully healthy, then I'd prefer to take advantage of that. If I'm the Lakers, I'd probably rather face the Warriors in that case. But I think with the Wolves, you are able to exploit their biggest weaknesses with Gobert off the court, which manifests itself into physical weakness, where I know you mentioned earlier you missed it, but I think that's sort of the biggest advantage the Lakers have is physical strength over this team. Not necessarily length, but guys like Luka and LeBron are going to overpower their best defenders, like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and McDaniels, their best perimeter defenders, I should say. And against a team like the Warriors, that is a team that I think can really match the small ball element and keep their best defenders on the court with Butler and Draymond. And I think they have more guys that can. You're not going to stop Luka and LeBron, but can cause more issues for them with guys like Draymond, Butler, Moses Moody, even all those guys. More so, Butler and Draymond are have the physical strength to really cause some more issues than the Wolves can. And I think offensively speaking, the Lakers are best, as weird as it sounds, because they play small ball, they're best built, I think, for stopping interior offense, at least offense that is initiated through the interior, that moves through the interior, rather than offense that moves around the perimeter like the Warriors. I think the Lakers have physical limitations that stop them from being able to consistently switch and move around and whiz around the perimeter as the Warriors would make them. So that is why I would prefer the Wolves to the Warriors.
Okay. Great reasoning indeed. Once again, it is, of course, Stone Hansen, along with Joe Soro and myself. Truly appreciate you joining us. With that, though, Stone, you seem pretty convinced that the Lakers will be able to move on in this round. Are you predicting a number of games, thinking a number of games in mind?
I would say Lakers in 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And like I said, it's the playoffs. There's never 100% certainty in any series.
Mhm.
But I feel fairly confident that the Lakers will win this. And I had to predict I would probably say in 5 or 6, one of those.
Okay. Joe, you've said something similar. I believe that that's probably going to be his case as well. Um, What about some of the other matchups as far as concerned? Is there anyone in the Western Conference? I know we've talked about this before, but seeing how the Lakers finished up and where they're at, do you think they have a prime opportunity now to maybe go farther than what maybe you were expecting before? Because I know that you've been reluctant a little bit to uh, you know, get them as far as maybe some other people would like to have them be. Are you a little bit more seeing a pathway for the Lakers? Is that the case?
Uh, no would be my answer because I've always sort of felt their ceiling is a Western Conference Finals
Mhm.
appearance, and getting to the finals I sort of always felt was a bit out of reach for them, and I still feel that way just given the center situation for them against some of the certain matchups you'll have to face or that they will have to face. I mean, after this series, that everything moved quickly, but I believe we play the Rockets next if we were to win, and they were to win their series. If it's the Rockets that were to win instead of the Warriors, I'd feel pretty confident in that matchup too. To be honest, I think um, I'd feel confident in the fact that I think we would be able to exploit a lot of the the weaknesses that they have interior wise with their basically. I think we could be able to get Shingun off the floor, but I do think they have a lot more defenders that they could throw at LeBron and Luca that would make it more challenging. So I'd feel less confident in beating them than I do the Timberwolves, but I still would ultimately think the Lakers pull that out. And then sooner or later, I presume the Lakers are going to have to face the Thunder, and sort of that's this entire season. Even after we got Luca, that's sort of where I felt the run falls apart. And like I said, I'm not overly disappointed if we were to lose this series. I know people will disagree. I wouldn't be that disappointed because I just don't see a championship this year. I'm really focused on next year and what we could do once we have a real center and we're further rounded this team out around Luca rather than Anthony Davis, and that's really what I'm focused on. So wherever we end up, whether it's first, second, third, whether we're in the finals, I don't. If it doesn't end in a championship, I don't really care where we fall out. And that's just sort of my mindset always. And I think for a lot of Laker fans, is championship or bust. And next year, I think, is the best window that we've had in a while to really capitalize on an opportunity. I don't think it's really there for us for this year.
Also here today, good man indeed. It is, of course, the man from Toronto. He did get out of Toronto traffic to go ahead and stop and by to have lunch with Stone Hansen. It is, of course, the Magic Man, Sean Grice. Sean, great to have you here. Again, we're still a few days away from the 3-6 matchup, but the play-ins start tonight. Any questions or thoughts on Stone Hansen? Hopefully you got a chance to catch some of his thoughts so far on the 3-6
Mhm.
matchup. Any thoughts on your own? And then also, do you have anything for Stone as well?
Yeah, so Stone, when you look at the Wolves bench, they really rely on Naz Reid and Nikhil Alexander Walker for some scoring punch. How do you feel our bench matches up with theirs, and what are you looking for as far as either sustaining a lead, or if the Wolves are, say, up by 6-8 with Ant off the floor, do you think we have to seriously think about winning those minutes with Ant off the floor?
Oh, Stone, you're on mute. I got you.
There we
I
go.
got you. Go ahead.
I think anytime a team's best players off the floor, you should do whatever you can to really capitalize on that, regardless of who is on the court for your team. With Alexander Walker, if it's bench versus bench minutes, I think he's going to cause real issues, especially like as of late, we've been relying a lot on Gabe and his shooting off the bench. I think he poses a serious issue for that. I think Reed poses an interior issue for the Lakers uh, because even with Hayes, but especially without Hayes, there's just a lack of physicality and strength that he can get through. Also, he can shoot. So I think he poses just a mismatch issue overall for the Lakers. But um, if we're talking about bench versus bench, but if the Lakers are able to, or JJ can adjust the rotations to where you have some form of starter where either Rui is in or you have DFS or LeBron, one of those three guys, I feel less concerned about what Nas does. But I think Alexander Walker significantly impacts the level of bench production that we have just from the defensive output that he provides.
I'm just going to say this: when it comes to the bench, if the Lakers bench, which has underperformed at times, we've called it out on several occasions this season, if they are anywhere near the Minnesota Timberwolves in overall output, that is an advantage to the Lakers because the Minnesota Timberwolves rely heavily. I think both you and Stone can agree, Sean. They rely heavily on their output from the bench, and if the Lakers somehow get anywhere close to that in bench output, that's an advantage for the Lakers, Sean.
Absolutely, Gerald. Absolutely. They're very reliant on Nas Reed to definitely give them a punch in the arm against the other team's reserves. I would also say that Minnesota overall has their brand of defense has changed. I'm sure Stone would agree. Their brand of defense has changed a little bit. Um, there's not a lot of on-ball pressure more. They've actually used Rudy Gobert a lot on the perimeter this year, and he's actually been fairly decent. It's when you can get him in mismatches and basically attack him in the paint. However, Minnesota does a great job of rotating defensively, and like I think Stone, you would agree, the ball has to move around the horn. Like it's just got to keep moving because any kind of isolation is an advantage to that Minnesota defense.
I think the ball moves better too. Obviously, when you're throwing out lineups with Reeves, Luca, LeBron, DFS, and Rui, and then I think isolation wise, I'm not sure if you caught it earlier, but I mentioned I actually think certain isolations favor the Lakers in the matchup perspective because um, I don't think they have a lot of the physical strength necessary to keep LeBron and Luca out of the paint. Like McDaniels and Alexander Walker are great defenders, but I think physically they're just very outmatched with their strength. And then if you try and put Randall and Reed out on the perimeter, I think their footwork just isn't fast enough to keep up and um, make sure those guys can not take advantage of them on step backs or get around them in some way. So I think certain isolations with your stars favors the Lakers, but in terms of everyone else, I would agree that you don't want any isolation. You don't want Rui trying to figure out a step back in the mid range, and you don't want DFS getting caught without a tilted defense to try and attack. I think those are things that we have to ensure are mitigated throughout the series.
One thing from Parade on Figueroa on Twitch, wanted to ask Stone and Magic Man your thoughts on this. Joe, I think it's still maybe probably eating lunch at this point in time. But I wanted to ask you guys on this for him. He's talking about if we are disappointed about Coloco or Jameson not being on the playoff roster because the playoff roster has been finalized without either of those guys on that roster. I'm going to say for me, I don't think either would make any significant contribution unless Jameson, you'd send him out there to be an enforcer to get 5 quick fouls and piss off Jokic in a Denver matchup or something like that. Yeah, those guys are both not exactly what, of course, Parade on Figueroa described in his comments being that the Lakers would need another rim runner and need the size. And of course, I don't think either of those guys are talented enough to be at that level at this point in time. Stone, I'll start with you first and then go with Magic Man. Are you disappointed that either Jameson or Coloco weren't added to the roster? I just don't think they either would make a significant contribution at all or be relied upon to do so by this coaching staff.
I would say disappointed in the fact that based on talent and merit, that I think they're more deserving of a roster spot than someone like Alex Len. I think in that way, it would be if your goal is to get the best players on this roster. I think those two are better options than Alex Len. But in terms of the impact they would provide throughout a playoff run, I don't think the Lakers really have a backup center that they ever plan to, and this sort of proves it, or will plan to throughout this year use as a backup center, a true center. I think we're probably even, especially in this series, we're going to see, I think, pretty limited Jackson Hayes minutes, if any, to be honest. I think center doesn't play to the Lakers' strengths currently, and I think they're looking to play as much small ball as possible with this roster.
I mean, I agree, JSJ. They should have waived Alex Len and brought one of those guys up. But again, whoever's there, whether it's Alex Len, Jameson, or Coloco, you're not going to see them much throughout a playoff run unless it's absolutely necessary or injuries start taking place. Magic Man, do you concur? Again, I think that those two are a better fit on the roster than Alex Len, either of those two. But then again, you're talking about very small margins between the bottom, which is Alex Len, and near the bottom, which is Coloco and Jameson. Magic Man.
Yeah, Gerald, it's around the margins here, I guess is what you would say. Yeah.
I feel like you're going to the bargain bin at Walmart and you're looking inside the DVD $5 section and you see like the ultimate worst movie there in the 5. So you immediately say, okay, that's the one I don't want. But you see the ones that like, okay, maybe were a hit for like a week and say, well, maybe that's a little bit better as far as getting that at $5.
Yeah. The Roadhouse versus the Land Before Time 4 or 5. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to ask
But
this.
I do concur, Gerald, and I think
Okay.
one of the keys here is that I think if Vando weren't on this roster, I think you might find it more imperative to have one of those two guys on. But I think what we've seen from Vando in the playoffs is that one thing he does exceptionally well is box out. He can put a body on somebody and force them to either go over him, commit a foul, or be brutally physical. I think that's what we need out of Vando this series, especially given the fact that positionally Ant is one of the best rebounders as a guard. And then you also have Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert in the front court. You need to find an X factor or somebody who can neutralize their impact just by boxing out. And with all due respect to Alex Len, he's 7'1", 280 pounds, and he can't box out as well as Jared Vanderbilt can. So, and that's just a fact.
I will say this, again, with Vando, the great thing is that we have DFS there as a additional defensive minded player, and in doing so, we are not reliant on Vando. because of his offensive inefficiencies. But Vando, in his 10 to 20 minutes that he's out there, Stone, one of the things I remember two playoffs ago against the Denver Nuggets, he was played off the floor not because of his offensive abilities, but the fact he just was not able to fight around screens. He has to get around screens better when given the opportunity and be able to go ahead and stay with his man on defense. And Vando, who has a lot of energy that he can create on the defensive end and a lot of havoc on the defensive end, hopefully will be able to provide that in the minutes that he's given in a playoff run, Stone.
With Gobert off the floor, it takes a lot of Finch's screen actions away. Not to say he won't utilize Nas and Randall, but he's not using those guys in the same way that he's using Gobert as a screener. And I think that in itself takes a little of that off of Vando. And I would expect Vando to, in this series especially, be a full-time center throughout this series. I don't think we're going to see much of him on the perimeter beyond defending Randall and Naz Reid threes maybe, but I think for the most part we're going to be seeing Vando inside. I think that's the best option too, to be honest, because I just don't think Hayes can handle the level of physicality those guys will bring in the post, but also I think in the pick and roll there would be some issues guarding against their short roll passing and things of that nature. So I think Vando's just better equipped to defend those guys. Not to say he's the best answer possible, but with what we do have and what we're working with, I would expect him to be defending those guys as much as possible, and I think that's probably the right call.
One thing I'll get it back to you, Stone, that was asked in regards to Connect. Do you see him playing any amount of time? I see him as a case as the 10th man on a 9-man or an 8-man rotation, only getting substantial time in case the Lakers need some type of offensive output because of his defensive inefficiencies. But, he might have that. It's already being phrased as the Lonnie Walker game. I would not be surprised if he does put out like a 15-point output in one of the games that the Lakers desperately need some type of offense if that happens. Your thoughts on if Dalton Connect will actually get any substantial time in the playoffs?
I would imagine he's not a significant part of the plan throughout the playoffs. Like I don't think they're planning on using him throughout the entirety of the playoffs. That said, the playoffs are full of unforeseen circumstances, and you never know what foul trouble or injuries might arise, or whether a player is just horrendously bad as a shooter or something. Maybe there's an opportunity that opens up for him. But I think the initial plan throughout these playoffs would probably not include Connect. I think for every team, rotation shorten throughout the playoffs. You're probably looking at 8 or 9 guys, like you said, with a fully healthy squad in a regular season. He's had trouble at getting consistent minutes, so I think that's probably only going to get harder in the playoffs. But like I said, you never know what happens in the playoffs. There's unforeseen circumstances all the time, so I wouldn't doubt that at some point he gets an opportunity.
Magic Man, I'll bring it to you. Lakers Doomer, he actually, I think, kind of asked this question, I believed, over the weekend. He said, what's our plan if Goodwin, Vando, Hayes? He added Rui. I don't think he added Rui last time. Got played off the floor. I don't know how you can play 4 players off the floor. It's usually just 1 or 2 in the course of a series, or in the course of a game, I should say, in the series. Sometimes it varies from game to game, but let's say 3 of those 4 players get played off the floor, which Goodwin, Vando, and Hayes obviously can. Your thoughts on that? I just think the Lakers are going to play a lot of small ball. I think they're going to try and take advantage in a 5-out setting to go ahead and do just that. Ultimately, we've seen in recent years in playoffs that the best opportunity for a lot of these teams is when they take their big man off and go 5 out. So your thoughts? I don't see it as much of a problem. for the Lakers. I know that Stone has talked about the center reliantly and whatnot. I do know that the Lakers do need to go ahead and upgrade at that position going forward. But for right now, with the 5 out that they have, they can compete with a great many teams, even on the offensive defensive end. I know Lakers Doomer talked about how what if Luca and Austin get targeted? They will get targeted, but it also happens to be the other end as well. Who will the Lakers target, and how will they take advantage?
100%, Gerald. I mean, you're going. JJ Redick's shown himself to have onions. So I mean, if they're going to put Austin and Luca out on an island, 1-on-1 against Ant or one of their bigs, I say turnabout is fair play. Let's put Ant, Jalen Clark, Dillingham, Mike Conley, whoever in the spin cycle too. Make them work as much as they're going to try and make us work. I will say, Gerald, I Stone kind of hit the nail on the head to me about Vando. I mean, it's like we have a trail mix 5. Like it's we've got pretzels, we've got raspberries, we've got whatever else is in there. But yeah, it's going to be throwing the kitchen sink at the 5. So I think, like Stone said, Vando's probably going to eat up most of the minutes there, and I would expect DFS, Rui, and LeBron at some point to play sparsely there. But they're going to have to just find something that works, Gerald. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think if you're having continued success with that 5-man lineup, or you swap out Rui or DFS for Vando, and you're still able to get timely stops, which is what we had against Minnesota the last time we played them in the play-in. You got timely stops in the fourth quarter, and you were able to pull away near the end. I think it'll probably go that route again but as we know, anything can happen in the playoffs. But I mean, we'll have to go with the trail mix 5 and see what happens.
No Look Past says he's a more mature rookie because he was asking why Dalton Stone isn't utilized more or wouldn't be utilized more. They just don't play rookies. If they're 24 years old or 18 years old, they just don't play rookies too much in the playoffs unless they are a integral part of the starting lineup or an integral part as far as a star player is concerned. Coaches will not play rookies unless they absolutely have to.
No,
in the playoffs.
And Gerald, let's be frank here.
And his defense is
Dalton has not passed the smell test thus far.
Mm-hmm.
To play regularly, consistently for timely periods in an NBA game because of his lack of defensive, I'm just going to say, characteristics, Gerald. He doesn't get low enough yet. He's like, we see it. His feet aren't, his footwork isn't as in tune to what the defense is showing. Gerald said, for a big guy, he's not strong yet. He needs to get stronger. I mean, one of the most underrated, probably the most underrated aspect of Luka's game is how strong he is, Gerald. He doesn't get enough credit for how strong he is in the upper body. And Dalton needs to put on beef, man. He really needs to put on muscle.
Well, he also needs to play with a force, as I've always told you. He needs to play with force.
What does Kevin Hart say, Gerald? Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest. That's what Dalton needs to play with.
Stone, you concur on that? I mean, again, I would love to see Dalton out there. I've been a big proponent of his. I think he's got one of the best forms and shots in the league. But again, I just think, as I've seen him over the course of the season, he just does not play with force. He just does not play with will. And as soon as he goes out there, he's going to be a target for the other team's offense, to the point where is it too detrimental to have him out there? If he goes out there, he better hit his shots. That's all I'll say.
The issue is you cannot play him in lineups where the whole point of small ball is to space guys out and then have just stellar perimeter defense. He doesn't have the stellar perimeter defense. The guy, there's already players that are capable of hitting threes that can defend. So why would you play a player that can hit threes and can't yet defend to an adequate level? And then also, you're really gonna have trouble if you are playing him alongside a lot of the players the Lakers are gonna have to play. So with Reeves or Luka, you already have two negatives on the perimeter defensively. You can't afford a third. Alongside Gabe, he's really only a positive against other guards. And if there's switches that happen, Gabe becomes a negative, and you also have Connect there. It's just taking out one less component of negative defense that the Lakers can't afford to have out there, considering the fact that all their players are going to be perimeter oriented. So you have to sort of trim the fat, if you will, of guys that can't provide defensive equity on the perimeter when you're playing this style of basketball.
Joe is back with us. Joe, let me ask you this. I know it was touched on before. I know Parade on Figueroa asked about it earlier about the fact that Jameson and Coloco were not added either, or were not added to the roster, and Alex Len, Markieff Morris are in. I just think when it comes right down to it, the Lakers and NBA teams for that matter, if you do not have a center that can go ahead and take advantage of the other team's defense in a switching matchup in the NBA playoffs, they're going to be played off the floor anyways on a lot of occasions. So a lot of these centers, even the ones that I'm very high on, like Zubats, they may be played off the floor as well. So with that in mind, I don't think it's that big of a disadvantage. The Lakers don't have a premier center right now as they head into the playoffs, as some might think.
The question is, what paint center, someone who's who spends his time in the paint is not going to get played off in the playoffs? That's the question.
Yeah.
I don't think this particular era of basketball allows a traditional center, no matter how good they are. They're going to get played off because they are either not good enough to shoot, or they're not good enough to get back in space when they are guarding someone near the perimeter versus going to the basket and protecting the basket. It's just impossible. You know who would have been really good in this era? Who would have been a freak? Probably would have been an MVP for 10 years straight. Hakeem Olajuwon.
There you go.
Hakeem would have been better in this era than he would have been in the 90s. That's a crazy thought. That's crazy. Now, he wasn't a three-point shooter, right? Like, well, what are you talking about, Joe? He would have developed it. A lot of these guys would have developed it. If Patrick Ewing could hit a 20-footer game in and game out, all these guys, David Robinson, all of them. Shaq, I don't know about Shaq. Shaq might have been the anomaly. Might have been the anomaly that still made it work just because he was so powerful. But even then, I've had discussions with people because Shaq struggled with the pick and roll in an era that belonged to him, and an era that catered to how he played basketball. So imagine how Shaq would have been played. And when you watch those Kings teams, that's why. That's why they couldn't really stop those guys. It's because he struggled with those centers that can actually shoot and play on the perimeter like Vlade did. It was kind of a precursor to what would eventually come. It was like the Kings kind of were the roots, and then here comes D'Antoni, and he got Steve Nash, his perfect like one, and then they kind of did what they did, and then it kind of settled a little bit, and then Steph got healthy after 4 years of ankle issues, and then all of a sudden here you are. We're looking at the next phase of basketball. The game against the two games against Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, right? You're bona fide, legit center power forward. Would you agree? Would you agree that Chet is a power forward, not really a center, right? Or is it just me?
I think Chet is best as a center defensive.
Okay. That makes sense. So they tried to play both, and it didn't work. Chet can shoot, right? Relatively well for considering the situation, second year, 30, whatever. They can't play Hartenstein and Chet, I believe, in the playoffs. If they play the Lakers at with their closing closing lineup, they can't play both those guys. It might have worked in the regular season playing against the other teams, but they're going to have to make a choice, and likely they're going to have to put a Holmgren at the 5 and then open it up a little bit. Guys like Jemison, guys like Koloko. First of all, Koloko looked horrid yesterday or 2 days ago. Jemison
Despite
is good.
the 5 block shots?
No, I don't care how many black shots he had. He looked like he could barely run. The playoffs are going to magnify all the bad. And I want everyone to also get ready for Jackson Hayes not playing a lot. Get ready for that as well, because he might get played. He's very more than likely going to get played off the court as well. So you're going to have to depend on DFS. You're going to have to depend on, God help us all, maybe LeBron in certain spots during the game. Otherwise, the Lakers are going to be in trouble.
I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you, Nolik Pass, that Len is worse than Koloko or Jameson, but they didn't feel that Koloko or Jameson are such a huge step up that they wanted to go ahead and wave Len for it.
Let me reiterate the Len situation. Empire Jeff had a good explanation. What was it yesterday?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Sorry, I've lost days already this week. Alex Len was a buyout player, and I'm just going to keep it short. There are unwritten rules about getting buyout players, and you don't. Guys who it's kind of a two-way street. So it was Len and his agent saying yes, because they were all but done in Indiana. He was going to be an Indiana Pacer, but then when the Lakers needed a big because Jackson Hayes had gotten hurt, they shifted and said, okay, well we'll kindly decline the Indiana thing and then come to you. But beyond all that, these buyout procedures, it's very rarely they're going to cut those guys unless it's a very clear understanding from the team saying, listen, we're going to pick you up, but understand that we may cut you at the end. It's not, I'm going to guess that Len would not have been cut in Indiana, otherwise he wouldn't have come to LA. So by unwritten rules, by not sabotaging future deals, the Alex Len acquisition was for the entire year, because it's got to be in good graces of the situation.
Because you don't know who that agent will represent down the road. And that agent, if they feel like they've had a bad experience with one of their clients with the Los Angeles Lakers, could lead a valuable piece that the Lakers want going forward, and could, just basically say, you know what, I don't want you dealing with the Lakers. So these two lovebirds.
More NBA moves happen because of relationships versus on-court production.
Yep.
The NBA is built on relationships. Have not that I'm super immersed in that world, but having known people that are, it's a lot of things happen behind the scenes to make rosters what they are, and it's because of relationships, whether it's coaching, front office. A lot of those moves are not built on what necessarily they can do or what they can offer. I mean, some of it is for sure, but a lot of it is built on the relationships and previous bonds built. So I would tell everyone that any move ahead of time can, before you roast it or love it, consider the relationship aspect of it as well.
JY had mentioned also as well, as far as Vando being played off the floor in previous playoffs like I did. That could possibly be the case, but he has not relied upon Stone as much as he has been in the past, because we do have another solid player that plays solid defense in DFS. Gabe Vincent is now healthy and giving you pretty solid minutes from time to time. His shot comes and goes, but at least he gives you great effort on defense. It's not as necessary for Vando to be out there on the floor like in previous playoffs. So whatever I feel that he gives you guys or gives the Lakers, I think is a bonus. I think it's just extra money on the table if he gives you positive performances going forward, Stone.
I think Vander will be out there for one reason. The reason he won't be out there is obviously because the Lakers are going to want to try and play 5 out. But in cases where they are really having trouble on the interior with guys like, Naz Reid or Randall, Vando's the best that we have to work with in terms of mitigating that as much as we can. It's not going to be Hayes. It's not going to be DFS. Vando is the best interior defender that we have right now to work with. And that's the reasons that he would get minutes or be deployed. And it might hurt us on the other end of the court. But that is, that the best way, the best option we have to stop the bleeding on the interior if it were to come to that. So that is what I foresee the role of him playing, at least in this series.
So I was going to bring that back up there. That's funny.
Please tell me that's real. Please tell me that's real.
Magic, let me...
Yeah, I'll put it back up, Jared. Hold on, because that was hilarious. Okay. So the reason that's up there, not everybody needs a little bit of background for it. So the last time the Lakers played the last time the Wolves and Mavs played each other, there was a guy in the front row who had a handkerchief, and he would show Luka the handkerchief every time he would come down and complain about fouls. And then Luka went on a 20-point explosion by himself, and everybody around him, you could see, are telling him to shut the. We don't want to hear. So that is actually a real PSA from the Wolves.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. That's so funny because, and then ultimately it led also as well. If you know the famous shot that he took, remember if you saw as far as when they were doing the tribute to him, the video tribute to him, he cried when did he cry? He started crying when he made when they re-showed him making that shot and yelling over at Rudy Gobert, who he took the shot over. So, don't give.
Has anyone ever asked Luka what clicks when somebody pisses him off?
I don't think so.
That's a question that I think someone needs to ask him. Get that hottie Ali
LaForce.
No, the other one, the one that does the Laker broadcasts. Allie Clifton. Get Allie Clifton to ask that question for us. If somebody can find a way.
LaForce over Clifton, but okay.
LaForce is fine too. She's a Laker. She's a Laker anchor lady. So I would like to know that because there's only been a handful of guys that I've seen switch when they're pissed. LeBron has a little bit of it. He has a little bit of it. I've seen it happen. Not a lot.
You see it when he steps up. He starts playing on defense. He starts going in that mode when he starts, he starts spotting people up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
obviously,
Michael, Larry. You could throw
in his eyes. You can see it in Braun's eyes. Magic.
Yes.
I've seen Michael get pissed. I remember this vividly, man. When he got pissed, it was over. Kobe. The thing is, Kobe, you can always tell Kobe's, like he's now somebody did turn something on because he doesn't talk after that. When Jalen Rose was asked what was Kobe doing during the 81-point game, he goes, he didn't say a freaking word to us. Just like how the Chris Rock with David Spade thing going on the sidelines, and all of a sudden they panned to whoever's camera work that was, man. Somebody give that guy an Emmy, man. And he went right to Kobe, and Kobe he might as well have been on Pluto, man, at that point.
And then you hear Phil in the background, when you're talking to one of my players.
Oh, my God. Phil yelled at him. Phil yelled at Matt Damon and Mark Wahlberg during the 08 finals.
Sit down.
Oh, man. Let's see, Joe, you're streaming the play-in game.
Actually, I'll stream it on the Lakers Fast Break because I know you got the Dodgers game at 7.
So, we're going to do the Laker games on Gerald's setup just because people are familiar with it. And if he's not doing it, then I'll do it. But we'll stick to the Dodgers and other games on mine.
Like they're
I'll put it for today because I know Joe has the Dodgers game at 7. I'll put the playoff games on the LFB. Go ahead, Magic.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, but I mean, that's part of the game too. Like, if you want to talk smack to him, I mean, it's part of the game. He likes it. It's fun for him. I don't think he gets pissed off more so that you just get him more focused. Like, he becomes hyper focused. I think that's the big difference. Rather than playing angry, you're playing hyper focused. And like you said, Joe, there's only a handful of guys who could play hyper focused like that. Michael, Larry, Kobe. You could throw Reggie Miller in there. You could throw KD in there. But there's only a handful of scorers who actually have the prowess to do something like that.
I know we're about headed out in a few minutes, but the last thing I want to get in is from Parade on Figueroa on Twitch. I'll start off with Stone. Against which team do the panelists feel that the Lakers are underdogs in the Western Conference playoffs? Well, they're going to be listed as underdogs if they faced OKC, Cleveland, Boston, and Houston, just by the sheer nature of it. But who do you think are the toughest?
No,
they would. They would here in Vegas.
If they let's say they sweep Minnesota.
Oh, they sweep Minnesota. Okay.
Let's say they sweep Minnesota and the Rockets have to go to 7 to win. That might be different, but Oklahoma City for sure. But I think you said the West, right? Yeah, Oklahoma City, and then maybe depending on circumstance, Houston.
But Boston, Cleveland as well. If it's
Boston finals, and Cleveland for sure, unless somebody gets hurt. Yeah.
Let's put it to a bigger question for Stone as we start to wrap this up. Stone, our lunch is almost over, but I want to hear your thoughts on who do you think really scares you right now when it comes to matchups against the Los Angeles Lakers, Stone?
Are you talking about teams or individuals?
Yeah, which teams are you hoping that the Lakers will avoid on the way in their playoffs?
I mean, OKC, but you just the only way to get to the finals, you're going to have to go through them.
So you took nothing changed for you at all, despite the Lakers' dominant win and the fact that they were leading until Luka got thrown out in those 2 games.
No, sir. Nothing changed.
Okay. I'm just asking because that's the first thing one of our commenters would say is, okay, hey, the Lakers were winning big in that first game against the fully stacked roster of OKC, and then the second game they were leading until Luka got thrown out and the refs interjected themselves in the game. But again, that your mileage may vary on those. So
yeah, I would say OKC, and I don't think we would face them because OKC probably beats them, I would think. But Denver still scares me in terms of Jokic and how we defend him.
The Lakers doomer is loving the Clippers because he says Kawhi will own LeBron and Zubats will own Hayes. Again, Hayes will not be in there. He only averages 15 to 20 minutes a game. So, yeah, who will own Luka?
According to Jeff Teague, you could Stone's laughing already. You could take Harden and Luka cancel each other out, and then Kawhi plays better than LeBron.
Okay, well, again, it just some of these guys, they just forget that there's other players on the Lakers side that will have those kind of matchups, Sean, as well. It's always about this person dominating the Lakers, this person dominating the Lakers, and it's funny because you forget that Luka has got what he scored 84 points in his last 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got LeBron getting a full week of rest towards the NBA playoffs and still playing at a high level himself. And Austin Reeves, that's one thing I want to go before we go. Joe and Magic Man Stone, I'm going to bring it to all 3 of you before we close out. Austin Reeves, how important is he to a Lakers run, and how well do you think he'll do this time around, Joe?
Well, he got sick. I say he got better every year.
Mm-hmm.
Why not have it be the 3rd year too for him to be better? I'm fairly confident that he'll do very well in the playoffs.
Now, he expended a lot of energy on the defensive end, playing against Jamal Murray. It kind of cost him on the offensive end. Do you see that thing happening again, or do you see him able to even it more out this time?
No. The issue now for the opponent is how are they going to handle a guy that can control the game like Luka, on top of the fact that they have to deal with LeBron. So here's I know it's lunch is almost done here. I'm still finishing up my breakfast. As great as Anthony Davis, his career has been, and as good as he is still, I don't believe Anthony Davis, other than maybe a single year, had ever been feared in the NBA by anyone, because he doesn't assert himself. He has the 40-20 games when he has the 6 blocks and the 3 steals. He has those things, but it's not. I believe he gets those numbers because he's that talented, but he doesn't get into the mind of the opponent. They're not. They're playing. They're playing a certain way because he's there, but they don't. I've never felt like a team really ever feared him. Teams fear Luka. Luka can end your entire season, and he's done it. And if it wasn't for Kyrie coming up lame in that finals last year, he'd have a ring right now, and it likely wouldn't be a Laker right now, too. By the way, so we should be thankful that they didn't win it. You know, but I just don't know any player that's going to be playing in this playoff that won't have to worry about Luka, or a team worry about Luka. Whereas with Anthony Davis, the opponent knew, well, he's just not going to go all the way here, guys. He's not going to be the guy that's going to be able to just get the ball and then, oh shit, we have to deal with him getting to the basket and getting an and one, which was tragic too, by the way, guys. How often do you see a big like that hits 84% from the free throw line? You know how much of an advantage the Lakers lost, other than 1 year, and maybe I'll give them 2021. But the fact that he couldn't just continue that effort, I don't even know if effort's the right word, but if he had gotten the ball if he was someone you could trust at the end of the games to get to the basket and get fouled, he's an 84% shooting big man. That's a huge advantage, and it just felt like it never really. Once he started missing his free throws in late in games, I started feeling like, oh shit, this is not supposed to happen. This is supposed to get better as you get older, but he didn't. He got worse, and I think that'll play a huge part. The fact that you can be afraid of certain things with the old team, but you have to really, really be afraid of Luka. Luka will bust your ass in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and the fourth quarter. And then at the same time, if the Lakers don't screw this up, by the way, give the goddamn ball to Luka at the end of games, please. Stop giving it to LeBron unless he's going to the basket. And there's at least 10 seconds on the clock. Don't use the guy. He's the guy that has the clutch gene. Use him. So make sure he inbounds the pass in the playoffs, please. And make sure you get it to LeBron or get it to someone like AR who can handle the ball, and then get it back to Luke or get it back to LeBron and have some time. Don't wait 4 seconds to shoot the ball. That's kind of the button on that for the playoffs.
I was going to say, don't have LeBron inbound the ball as we saw this year.
That's sad commentary, too, by the way. That's a sad commentary. The fact that this guy is supposed to be arguably the greatest of all time can't inbound the fucking ball.
Yeah, I know.
That's bad.
Agreed. Tell that to John Costa. Magic Man, I'll bring it to you.
No, he'll just curse me out and say I don't know anything about basketball.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Call you,
you hear
casual.
Me, Costa? I'm talking to you.
Yeah. He'll be on a little bit later with his preview. I think for what he said, if you catch him on Twitter. Magic
and by
Man,
the way, John, I finally saw that debate. You got pwned, man. Joe pwned you. Joe pwned you. Like,
tell him that live.
But did you see Joe pwned you?
I didn't even pull out the full arsenal because I was just playing off what he was saying, and he kept repeating half the shit.
He started gulping. You can see him gulping. You can see him gulping, getting a little nervous with Joe.
Like half
out
of
the
it.
Fireworks.
Unfortunately, both were wrong though because Kareem is the GOAT. But we'll save that conversation.
I wouldn't argue with that debate.
You can't get the GOAT to center, Stone.
Yes, you can.
All right.
No, you can't.
All right, here we go. Now,
Center can't dribble the ball. Really, I mean, they don't create. They're there to wait for the ball to get to them.
We'll save it for a debate episode.
Agree to
another day.
disagree.
There you go.
And
Magic.
yeah, Gerald, I love the grasping at straws that the trolls are doing here. Well, you know, they have Paul George, Norman Powell, and I think Zubats weren't as good
Paul
as they are
George.
now. I'm talking to Laker Doomer in the
last season.
Yeah.
Whatnot.
Yeah,
But-
and look back and watch all 6 games, Laker Doomer, because if you think Kyrie outplayed Luka, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, bro.
And James Harden in the playoffs. He has those.
What did Jack do to Ron Artest after that game 7?
Well, look at it this way. James Harden, when he was with the Philadelphia 76ers in that series against Boston, 2 great games, 2 wins, 4 bad games, 4 losses. And I'll just leave it at that. But Magic Man, before I hit it over to Stone Hansen to finish off our lunch, want to go ahead and hear your thoughts. Austin Reeves or any other X factor come to mind for you with the Lakers against the Wolves or in the NBA playoffs for that matter? Magic Man, you hear me?
Repeat the question.
The X factor for you as far as for the Lakers in the NBA playoffs.
Can you keep the Wolves off the boards?
Okay, there you go.
That's
gonna be key.
Can't give up 2 or 3 straight offensive possessions in the playoffs, Gerald. Teams will make you pay. I
agree. Offensive rebounds has been an issue for the Lakers all season long, even with Anthony Davis. So that's
which makes having Jordan Goodwin, who's I think he's had a offensive rebound in every game he's played for the Lakers, except I think 2. So I mean, you're gonna have to get him out there, Gerald, because he can't crash the boards.
We'll see if he's hitting a shot. If he's hitting a shot, it makes him much more palpable to put him out there and keep him out there. So we'll see. Stone, my friend, I truly appreciate you stopping by. You and the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast do a great job covering the NBA Draft. I didn't even get to talk draft to you. I was going to ask you about a Chinese prospect. Some are thinking that may be available for the Lakers at 55, but I won't even touch on that. That's for another day because I'll ask you. But your final thoughts on the Lakers and what you think has to go right for them in the playoffs before we head on out.
I think the Lakers have to play to their strengths, which is small ball, and we have the 2 strongest non-centers in the NBA to do it with, and I think that really helps. So that is my final words. I do have to get going, but I appreciate you guys having me on. I will be back at some point, I'm sure, for some sort of draft episode or more playoff talk at some point. But I appreciate you guys having me on. I do have to run, though.
All right. So, yep.
He
has to run back to the workplace for everyone because it's lunch with Stone Hansen, isn't?
No, I do everything 10 times speed.
All right, fair enough, indeed.
I just got this image of Stone as soon as he's about to go.
And Joe's out.
And Joe's out, indeed.
How are you, Stone, so far?
I'm sorry.
But say again, Magic?
Yeah, how's the job working out for you?
I guess that wasn't funny as I thought it would be.
Good. It's a lot. And then I have a lot of other stuff I'm doing outside of work, but it's good so far. It keeps me in shape, and it's nice and physical. So it keep my exercise each day. But thank you guys for having me. I'll be back on at some point. I'm sure I'll text or communicate with you guys at some point, and I'll be back on to talk more Lakers.
Tonight I will put on some of the playoff matchups. So if you want to go ahead and be there for the chat, go ahead and check it out on the Lakers Fast Break on playback. And then also Joe Soro Experiment for the Dodgers game on that playback channel. And then I'm assuming a Joe Soro Experiment tonight as well. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah.
There you go, indeed. Lunch with Stone Hansen is now over. But we'll be back with more great stuff during the week and also during the playoffs right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast.
That's not burger? No, it's not a burger. Menus are too many on the menu. Oh, it's Carl's
I'm
Jr.
hungry.
It's Carl's
Yeah.
Jr. Dinner with Joe Soro. That's funny. That's good, Doomer. You pissed off
You already
Sean,
have-
but that's a good way to end the show.